Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Sean and today I am doing the September update for my writing. So let's get into it. In September I started the second draft of Keeping Fire, which is the third book in the Samuel Creed series. The first book, Keeping Creed, the second book, Keeping Strong. The first draft was 52,000 words, which is definitely on the short side. Keeping Creed was 129,000 words, or 393 pages. Keeping Strong was 124,000 words, about 377 pages. So for this series, I would like it to be somewhere in the vicinity of 129,000 words, about 380 pages. That is ideal. So doing 56,000 words for the first draft is definitely not ideal. I wrote these books pretty much back to back. I finished Keeping Creed, then I pretty much immediately started working on Keeping Strong. I finished Keeping Strong, and then I immediately wrote Keeping Fire. But what happened in that book was I just really ran into a problem towards the end. The main problem I had was that I want the villain in the book to be really smart. And I want him to outsmart all of the main characters. But here's the problem. All of the main characters, and there's like about 6 of them, maybe 5, I want them all to be very smart themselves. So how exactly do I have this villain be smarter than them when these characters, the main characters, are smarter than me? So how do I write them and make them smart? But I have to make the villain smarter than them. But in the end, they need to outsmart the villain. So ultimately, everyone is just too smart for me. And that was kind of a problem. And I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know what to do with the villain. I had ideas a little bit for what could happen, but I didn't know like the full story, how he outsmarts them, what they try to do that shows they're smart, but he is smarter, and how in the end they outsmart him. It's just too smart for me. So in the end, I was really struggling with writing Keeping Fire, the third book, and apparently 56,000 words in, I was just like, you know, I've done all I can with this. I'm just going to have to move on and call it quits for the first draft. So that is it. 56,000 words is all I have to work with. The whole storyline about the antagonist, I need to write almost from scratch. I'm not even positive of the guy's name. So just the essence of the plot of the book. The book deals with the kidnappings of those schoolgirls in Nigeria. So it's based on real events. And Samuel Creed, the main character who works in counterterrorism, is basically on that job. So he is working to save those girls who have been kidnapped in Nigeria. The title comes from the main character. Genevieve Fire is one of the kidnapped schoolgirls, and that's where the book title comes in, Keeping Fire. If you don't know the story about the kidnapped schoolgirls, I think it was around 2009, 2010, I'm not sure, where this terrorist group in Nigeria kidnapped hundreds of schoolgirls. So that is all real, and many of them have not been rescued yet, and yeah, not good. So that is what Sam is working on. At the same time, from the family side of things, because the series is very much like split between action-y counterterrorism stuff and family story. On the home front, Sam's fiancée, Tessa, is having sickness, which she can't quite explain, but she's getting real nauseated and stuff. So it should be obvious to everyone that she is pregnant, but the tests she is doing show that she is not pregnant. So in short, this book, Keeping Fire, is the pregnancy book. There is a lot of pregnancy in the book. That is all I will say about it. Okay, so starting out with the second draft, the first thing that really struck me was that I have not done a second draft in a while. The only things I've done have been like final drafts and first drafts. So I did the final draft of Syrian Dander, and then not long after that I did the final draft of Keeping Strong, and then after that I did the first draft of Ottoman Destiny, and then Arabian Dawn. So when I started the second draft of Keeping Fire, it was kind of peculiar to me because it's like I already had something written, but it's not to the editing stage yet. So it's just real interesting for me. To quickly recap, I do 7 drafts of my books. The first 3 drafts are done on the computer, and that's writing related. After that, the next drafts 4, 5, 6, and 7 are done. I order a proof copy of the book. I order a copy of the book itself, and I edit it with a red pen. And those I call the red pen drafts. So that's draft 4, 5, 6, and 7, and that's purely editing. So starting out with the second draft, the main thing I kind of do is I essentially rewrite the book as I go. So I will pretty literally have like the paragraph I wrote like beneath where I am at the cursor, and I will just retype the whole thing out, but I will rewrite it as I go. So what I do basically is I take the old draft and I beef it up to my current writing standards, and I do that just by rewriting the book as I go. I got to a part about 10 chapters in, however, where I definitely needed to start deviating because what I saw I had written, it just did not work. So I knew right away I have to rewrite this at this point. So what I did is I took just basically all of the stuff I hadn't gotten to yet and I put that in a separate file. And I just title it like edited out. And what I do as I write from this point is I may look at that folder and pick scenes out that I'd written before. For instance, there was a scene that I wrote in the first draft where Sam, Tessa, and Rose go out for pizza. So what I did is I realized the point I'm currently at in the second draft, I could use that scene. So I took it out of the edited out folder and moved it back into the second draft and rewrote it as I usually do, rewrote it into the book. So this way I just use up these scenes that I have from the first draft, but in a different way. So basically it's like I put them in a vault and I take them out whenever I can use them. And if something just never comes out of that vault, it just gets cut from the book. I am at 36,000 words. Basically, the second draft is up to there. I still have my vault, though, of edited scenes that I've cut from the book. And gradually, as I go, I may work those scenes back into the book. But for now, the book is at 36,000 words. I'm actually pretty happy with that because, like I say, I want to get on target for about 125,000. I'm at 36,000. And where I am at in the book, I think I would be around 15% into it. So if I'm at 36,000 words, I don't want to do the math right now, but I would be fairly close to 125,000. So I think I am pretty good for pacing. I am kind of running into a problem with this book, however, and what it deals with is I am struggling with how to present the storyline about the kidnapped Nigerian girls because it's just such a dark, dreary thing to write. I really don't want to write about that. It's like so traumatic. And also since it's based on real events and real people, it's just uncomfortable writing that. And something that's very difficult is to write it in a way that doesn't feel like exploitative. So I'm torn whether I should just be descriptive about these scenes or if I should be more just imply what's going on. I don't know, that's difficult. And readers will be split on which one they would want. Some readers would want to know all of the details. Others would not want to get into that at all because it'd just be too traumatic. What I'm considering doing is writing in the introduction of the book that these scenes in the book will be very dark, traumatic. They are based on real events. So if people do not want to deal with that, they could skip those scenes and they will still understand the book. The problem kind of with doing that is then I think, well, if you could just skip all of these scenes, then why are they really there? If the book works without them, why should I write them? But again, it comes back to some people would like to read these scenes. But then on the other hand, I don't want it to feel like exploitative, like people get kicks off of reading these scenes or that they enjoy reading these scenes. You should not really enjoy reading these scenes. They're not good scenes. They're traumatic. So it's just real difficult how to write those storylines. The other problem with it is a lot of the book is actually meant to be kind of like family friendly and humorous and stuff. So I mentioned I'm working on a scene right now where Sam, Tessa, and Rose go out for pizza. And that scene is pretty funny. But this is the problem. At the same time this pizza scene is going on, there is something really bad happening in Nigeria, which I would want to show. So how do I exactly go from one scene to the other? How do I go from this lighthearted, funny pizza scene to this real traumatic scene in Nigeria? Especially the way the pizza scene is written, because it's very much kind of breaking the fourth wall. It's a really ridiculous scene. But the scene that follows is meant to be real serious. So if I have it in the reader's mind that this book is like lighthearted and it's not serious, and then I try going into something serious, I think the readers would be shocked by it, kind of like, what? I thought this book was a joke. You just kind of made me think this book isn't real serious. It's a comedy. And now you want me to get serious about this scene? You want me to have emotional investment in this scene? It's real difficult. So it's a challenge how to write that. Through the whole series, really, this is an issue. How to manage all of these different emotions. How to have like a lighthearted scene with Rose, who is my favorite character. She is adorable. She is funny. I love her. Go from that into a terrorism scene and violence and death and war. Anyway, I'm not sure what I will do to remedy this, because I like both of these scenes, the pizza scene and this scene set in Nigeria, but I just know they cannot really follow each other, these chapters. But this comes back to what I need to tell myself about second drafts. Writing the second draft, it's real easy for me to fall into a trap of thinking it has to be perfect. I have to get everything right. And this is not the case. Something I tell myself when I do first drafts all the time is that it's just a first draft. It won't be perfect. I will do 6 other drafts at least. So there's a lot of time for me to fix it. The goal with this draft, the first draft was 56,000 words, so not quite even 50% of the book. Hopefully with the second draft, I could get it up to like 80 or 90% right. And then the third draft, hopefully with that, I could get the main story pretty much all resolved. And then from that point on, it's only editing. So even though right now I feel like everything has to be perfect, it really doesn't. I'm still going to do a third draft after this, which is largely writing related. So my main goal in this draft is just to try to get as close as possible to a final finished product. But it does not have to be perfect. So for instance, this dilemma I'm having with this pizza scene and then this scene set in Nigeria, I really should not worry about that at this point. I should just write both scenes, and then in the third draft, I could figure out exactly where they go. Maybe the pizza scene comes earlier, maybe it comes later, but I will find a better spot for it then. The main thing now is just to write those scenes out and write them out as well as I could. And then in the third draft, then I could find out easier where they should go. Anyway, all in all, I'm pretty happy with the progress I've made so far with Keeping Fire. Again, I am at 36,000 words, which isn't bad. So I also quickly want to run through the books I'm currently reading, and there's a few of them. The first is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. This is my first book I've read by him. I'm only about 100 pages in. The thing is, I kept checking this book out from the library because I am not much into fantasy, so I make slow progress with it. And the book is in high demand, so a lot of times when I would go to check the book out, it would be gone. Someone else would have checked it out. So I went ahead and I bought the book just so that the people at the library trying to check it out, so I don't take it away from them, because I make such slow progress on it. It'd be one thing if I was actually really reading the book, but I really only average like 1 chapter a week with this book, if that. So so far basically I like his writing okay, especially the last chapter I read, which was about the guy, I don't know his name, Kaladin, something like that. He had to carry this bridge over this battlefield. That is the last chapter I wrote, and it was a real good chapter. So I think Brandon Sanderson is a pretty good writer. The main thing, I really respect him as an author because he's very accessible, like on YouTube and stuff. And I see he's always signing books, which, if you know me, that's a quick way into my heart. Someone who is a prolific signer, that is great. And anyway, I just like Brandon Sanderson as a writer. I kind of wish I could be Brandon Sanderson. So I really respect him as a author, if that makes sense. So it's not so much that his writing is blowing me away at this point. It's more just as a writer, as an author, I respect him. Kind of the problem with the book for me is he has a lot of stuff in his books and he doesn't really explain much what everything is. I think he will explain it as he goes, or he explains it in other books as well. And that's difficult for me because it's like I read something and I'm like, what's that? Or who is that? And he doesn't say. He may say in like 300 pages, or he may say in another book, but he doesn't say right then. And so he thinks like, oh, don't worry, you'll get it in 100 pages. But the thing is, I would have already forgotten who that person was by the time I get to that. I won't remember. And he, along the way, in the meantime, he'll have introduced like 100 other things. So I just don't get it. This is why I don't really like fantasy too much. But anyway, so I'm kind of having a little difficulty following it, but it's not bad so far. Next is Michael Crichton, A Case of Need. And this was one of his first books he wrote as himself. He wrote some books under a pen name, but this is one of his early books as Michael Crichton. And what's kind of cool is this book is like medical related. And that was kind of like Michael Crichton's start, was in medicine, and he wrote about medicine, and then he kind of branched off into writing his more technical books about like Jurassic Park and all that. The thing is, this book is really about abortion, and in the end of the book, Michael Crichton kind of includes a little essay of sorts talking about his views on abortion. And I am real passionate about this issue. Abortion is an issue I feel very strongly about. I don't want to get into it here though, because I don't want to get into politics. So this is definitely a risky thing, reading a book about abortion, because since I have such strong feelings about it. So far, I think the book is pretty good. I'm actually enjoying it, which is a surprise, because I've kind of thought that I've reached a point where Michael Crichton's books don't really work for me. I liked the first 3 or 4 books I read by him, but I haven't liked any books I've read since by him. But this one I'm kind of liking so far, and I think I've lasted longer than I have with most of his other books. So far I'm liking it okay, but since it is about abortion, that could quickly change and I could quickly quit this book. Next is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. And this book I am actually over 60% in, and I am really liking it. And what's pretty cool, I have not seen the movie except like once when I was a kid, years and years ago. I don't really remember too much about it, but I'm definitely enjoying the book. And I knew from reading this book that I would probably give this book 5 stars. What's real neat is I was at the bookstore browsing for books, and I saw this, a signed copy of Sailor Song by Ken Kesey. So a signed book by the author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I'm currently reading. So, you know, I'm a sucker for signed books, and yeah, so I just had to get it. And it's real cool for me, since One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I pretty much knew it would be a 5-star book. To find a signed book by him is really sweet. But anyway, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I'm definitely enjoying it. I'm definitely going to read it all the way to the end. Again, I'm over 60% through, so great book. Next, I had an idea to do a TBR swap. So I made a post on Twitter basically saying I have this idea where we take books from each other's to-be-read lists and we read them. And so Maria from Read Fine Books was interested. So we kind of agreed to do the TBR swap. So we take books that are on each other's to-be-read list and we read them. So the first book I'm reading off of her to-be-read list is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. And I got this book from Target. I bought it because I did not want to keep checking it out from the library, so I could read it at my own pace. I am not far into it, only about a couple chapters. Nothing to say about it so far. Next is The Fountains of Silence by, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Ruta Sepetys? I don't know. I read part of her book, Salt to the Sea, and I DNF'd it. And the reason is because she had real short chapters, like 2 or 3 pages a piece for every chapter, and it just drove me crazy. I do not like short chapters like that, just short chapter, short chapter, short chapter, because to me it lulls me to sleep. You may just start to like a chapter or a character and bam, the chapter's over, and then you move on to another chapter and another character. So I just don't like this formula of short chapters. I think a lot of writers do this because they think it makes it like a page turner, because it's so easy to read a 2-page chapter. It's like, oh, 2-page chapter, bam, 2-page chapter, bam. And so they think it's a page turner. They think that makes it exciting, but it really doesn't. I think it's best to have a variety of chapters. Most of all, though, I think they should be at least like 4 or 5 pages. So that way you can get into them and you could begin to get invested in them. So basically, after reading Salt to the Sea, Ruta Sepetys or whatever, I was kind of like, I don't want to read another book by her, but this is on Maria's to be read list, so I have to read it. So far it's okay. It's set during the Spanish Civil War, or after that, actually. It's set after that. And anyway, so nothing to say about her really, but she does use short chapters in this book again, so that's an issue for me. I do not like it. I am trying to ignore that as much as I can. The other book that was on Maria's list was Bloodchild by Octavia Butler. I've never read any book by her. They do not have that book at the library, and it's also not at the bookstore I frequent, so I'll actually need to probably buy that book. But anyway, that's the third book on Maria's list. Also currently reading A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I had previously read part of David Copperfield. That's the first Charles Dickens book I read, and I utterly hated that book because it was just so incredibly boring. So what's kind of funny is I Googled Charles Dickens' best book, because I was just hoping that David Copperfield was like his worst book to start out on. And so I Googled Charles Dickens' best book. What do you think came up? David Copperfield. So anyway, A Tale of Two Cities is a real prominent historical book, and it's on the 1,000 Books to Read list by James Mustich, so I have to read it. So, anyway. It's actually okay so far. I'm not enjoying it too much, but it's definitely not quite a 1-star book at this point. So right now, leaning toward 2 or 3 stars, but I'm not far into it. Only, I don't know, 60 pages. Next is another book I just got from Target. That is Donna Tartt, The Secret History. I previously started this book years and years back, and I only read like 25 pages. But I remember liking it fairly well, so I was definitely wanting to reread it. It was not a book I DNF'd. It's just a book I picked up from the library. I read 25 pages. I had to return it, but I wanted to keep reading it. So for whatever reason, the library does not have a copy anymore. So I just wound up buying the book. Part of the reason is because I got a signed book by Donna Tartt, The Goldfinch. So I definitely want to read her, and this book is off the top 1,000 list, The Secret History. So I want to finish this book, and then I also want to start The Goldfinch, which I think won a Pulitzer. So thus far, I'm kind of liking the book pretty well. I don't think there's really any faults with it, but at first I was thinking this could be a 5-star book. Now, I don't know how far I am. I'm about 40 pages into it now. Now it's kind of leaning more toward like 3-star territory more, maybe 4. The book is okay so far though, so I'm not quite near quitting on it. Last on my currently reading list is Lonesome Dove from Larry McMurtry, and this is a book from the library that I've been checking out over and over again, and I am only about 150 pages in. Now, this is a book off the top 1000 list by James Mustich, and I also got a signed copy of a book by Larry McMurtry. Now, I'm actually really enjoying this so far, so I am thinking this book would probably be a 5-star book. The main problem really is it's too long. I don't know how long, it's close to 700 pages, I think, and that's quite a lot. But so far I'm liking it, and every scene really is flawless, and the writing is flawless. It kind of reminds me of Gone with the Wind. It seems like this is a great American novel. But unlike Gone with the Wind, it doesn't have a lot of failings that book had. So far I'm enjoying it very well, but I am making slow progress on it. I don't know, I may have to try to buy a copy of this book somewhere at some point because I want to read the whole thing, but I just keep having to check it out from the library because I only read like, a chapter a week really. I saw the TV show years and years back as a kid. I don't remember too much about it, except one character was crossing a river and got killed by snakes. I don't know who that character is. I hope it doesn't happen in the book. I hated that scene in the show. And I remember like pretty much every character in the show got killed off. So I don't know. But I'm liking it so far. It definitely seems like it's a 5-star book and a true classic. The funny thing about this book is I think it was only published like 1990 or something. So it's not like a book that was written like 1960s or whatever. It's actually a pretty recent modern book. So that's pretty interesting to me. So it's like a newer book, but at the same time, it's like a classic. It's a great American novel, even though it's written in like 1990, which just seems weird. So these are my currently reading books. I'm making slow progress on them, so I may only read like a chapter from like 2 or 3 books a day, but slow progress. So that is it for this video. It turned out a lot longer than I thought it'd be. I thought this video would only be like 5 or 10 minutes, but I think it's gonna be closer to like 20. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.